What is going on everyone, Jelly here, and today we're back revisiting the Disc Priest guide I did probably about a month ago now, and the reason why is because I have made a few changes to the last one that I've done, a few game style changes, or gameplay changes, and also just kind of answer a few of the questions that I got in the comments and that, because I got a lot more feedback than I thought I was ever going to get, and it's been great. I mean, it's been 90% of it's been positive. And as always with internet kind of stuff or anything in life, there's always going to be a little bit of criticism, but the most part it was all constructive, which was great because it got me to get back in there, test a few different things out. And so I'm back and I'm thinking let's just talk about all the changes that I've made and go over the ones that we've kept and all that kind of stuff. Now, one of the questions I got, or one of the comments, was that someone would like to see my point of view of doing like some dungeons or some raids or something like that. So in the background, I'm just going to put a casual +5 keystone so you can kind of see when I choose to use a Shadow Mend over a plea and stuff like that. Nothing too intense, just because this guide is based at the casual or the majority of Disc Priests, not the high-end Mythic Raiders or the +15 keystones. I mean, you can use it, you can do it for that. I know I will be at one point, but for now, we're just aiming at the general population. Alrighty, to kick it off, like always, let's go over the stats. Now, some people have disagreed with what I've said in my last priority kind of video, but I think the majority of that is because I didn't kind of specify the difference between your stats for your raiding and your stats for your healing. They can be completely different, they are completely different play styles. Even myself, I've kind of learned that after doing a few different things, trying a few different talents, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go over them. And I'm going to kind of explain the differences and why you want to go with this over something else in a dungeon over a raid kind of thing. Alrighty, so if you're going to be doing a lot more raiding over your keystones kind of thing, your secondary stat priority is going to be haste, mastery, then your versatility and crit. Why are we putting the haste and mastery above these two? Well, because if you're going to be doing raiding, you're going to be focusing a lot more on atonement healing. You're going to be doing a lot more bursting, less Shadow Mend kind of play style, so you're going to be using, your Radiance and your Pleas and your Bubbles. You're going to be getting Shadow Mend out, Atonement out, sorry, just before the big burst comes, and then that's when you're going to hit out there with your Penance and your Smites and all that to get that big Mastery affected Atonement heal. So that's kind of the play style of the raid Disc Priest, I guess you could say. Yes, you can still play this spot heal, use your Shadow Mend and that, but you will burn a lot more mana. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't use your Shadow Mend, you can, but you got to incorporate a burst a lot more into raid healing. And that is mostly because the Disc Priest does have the strongest burst heal in the game, I reckon, or one of the strongest burst heals, because you can, with the right talent, which I'll talk about in a second, get at least 20 or probably around 20 atonements out just before like a big AoE damage, and then you can just put your Light's Wrath or your Penance and bam, that's pretty much all you need to do, and everyone will be getting some massive heals. It is really good, but I'll tell you about it a little bit more in a second. Alrighty, Mythic plus dungeons. Now, I know a lot of people, even myself, do a lot more of that compared to raiding, and so it's a little bit different. Now, especially for the high-end ones, you're going to be going something like this. Obviously, intellect, as always, your stat, that's your primary stat. Secondaries, haste, crit, mastery, versatility. Now, the haste for me, I'm still kind of fiddling with. I'm thinking of keeping it around the 18 or the 20% mark. I don't really need it any more than that. I reckon I can get heals off quick enough, especially if you've got trinkets with haste procs on them, stuff like that. I just don't feel like I need it any more than that, when I can focus the rest of it into crit and mastery. Now, mastery, yes, obviously for your atonement heals, but because of the playstyle of the Mythic plus dungeon, especially like I said, the high-end ones, you are going to be using Shadow Mend a hell of a lot more to kind of get everyone up, and people are going to be dropping a lot more, so you need that big instant heal. Now, that is why I'm putting crit up there just under haste. Well, actually, it could probably be above haste, because, I mean, like I said, haste is only at around your 20% mark with trinket procs and stuff. Now, that is the difference between your raid Disc Priest and your dungeon Disc Priest. Completely different play styles. You can use well, you can really use the dungeon one in a raid if you wanted to, if you had enough mastery and stuff. I probably more focus on the second, like the dungeon disc priest, and I raid, you know, I do normals, I do a bit of heroic and all that, and I have no problems. Sometimes I'll lose a little bit of mana, just have a potion handy and you're gonna be sweet. Some people still do agree that, or think that mastery in a dungeon should be above crit, but trust me on this, I disagree. I can see what they're saying because of atonement and stuff, but your atonement healing is not going to be as effective in a high-end Mythic Plus dungeon as your crit for your big Shadow Mens and your big damages, your big bubbles, your big everything. Alrighty, let's talk about the Disc Priest talents. Now, like I mentioned before, there's a slight difference between your raiding and your dungeon with the talents. Not a massive one, but I'm going to go over them and let you know what I think. So for your first tier in your talents, Castigation, it's still a no-brainer for me. It's the one to go. Schism, just, I don't know, it uses too much mana. It's not my kind of cup of tea. And I'm a guy who fucking loves his tea. Second, some people like to go Body of Soul. I'm still with Angelic Feather because you can use it when you need it. It's not like you have to wait for your bubble to come off cooldown to use Body and Soul. That kind of stuff. But yeah, Angelic Feather all the way. Third talent, personal preference. I'm with Shining Force, but it doesn't matter. It's whatever you play, whatever you want to play. Probably not Psychic Voice. I don't see why you'd be using a lot of fears, especially in dungeons, that you don't want shit running everywhere. You want something a little bit more controlled, so Shining Force is a little bit more handy. You can push stuff to where you need to. Alrighty, your fourth tier. Now this one, I'm still with Mindbender. I feel like Mindbender has a lot more to offer, especially in dungeons and stuff. Some raiders go with Shield Discipline, but I don't know. To me, Shield Discipline probably works pretty well, but Mindbender, you can use it when you kind of need it. I use it pretty much off cooldown a lot of the time, but you can also use it for that extra burst heal if your mana's not a problem. Alrighty, fifth tier. This is where things get a little bit weird for me. Power Infusion, still don't really use. It can definitely help in some situations. That increased haste and reduced mana cost with that cooldown. 2 minutes. You can use it alright. It depends on the fight, I guess. But the other two, alright, Twist and Fate and Contrition. Contrition's been buffed since last time. It adds an extra second onto it, so the atonement duration is increased by 3 seconds. Now, that is a big deal. If you're raiding and you're doing the big burst heal, like I said before, trying to get out like 20 atonements before Ursoc does his charge or something like that, that's something to go. I think that's what you're going to be looking at, because that allows you to get those extra atonements out before you do your Light Wrath and that. Twist of Fate is definitely the choice you're going to want to go for your plus high-end keystones. And that is because a lot of the time people are going to be dropping below 35% because the damage is real. The multiplier in damage shoots up so much. People are going to get hit hard and drop straight down to the 30s. And then that's why Twist of Fate comes in, gives you that 20% increased damage and healing. That will buff your Shadow Mens, which is what you're going to be using the majority of your keystones. That's definitely the way to go. Second last talents, Divine Star for dungeons, Halo for raids. I guess it kind of depends on the boss as well, but in raids, like Divine Star's probably pretty good for sometimes on Ursoc, like when you're all stacked. Halo's good for reaching around when everyone is spread. But if you used Halo on a keystone, there's a high chance you can accidentally pull some extra mobs, and that is not a good thing. So Divine Star is a lot more, you can control it a lot better. And lucky last, don't worry about Shadow Covenant, don't use it. It needs some tweaking to be alright. Yes, it's good for your, AoE healing, but you don't really need it. If you use Atonement well, you don't need it. Grace, keystones, obviously, because of the increased tier out of atonement healing, so your Shadow Mens. Purge the Wicked is pretty good for raids, to be honest. You probably want to go something more like that, but you can still use Grace if you still want to incorporate your Shadow Mens into your raids. But that's pretty much it. That's your talents. I've kind of talked about your two different, whereas last time I was just focused on this one build, this one style, instead of kind of explaining the differences. But yeah, so there's your talents. As for gems and enchants, pretty much intellect for the cloak as usual, claw for the neck, and the rest, depending on if you're low on haste or you're low on crit, gem for haste or gem for crit. Don't worry about mastery. Mastery you can get pretty much elsewhere, and mastery buffs up a lot with Disc Priest, so crit or haste. Alrighty everyone, that is it. That pretty much covers the Disc Priest guide for the second time around. I've kind of showed you the differences between the dungeons and the raid healing. If you liked it, please let me know. Leave a comment for any questions. Seriously, if you disagree with something, please do let me know, because I really do enjoy reading the comments and giving this other suggestion a shot. So yeah, like I said, leave a comment, let me know what you thought, and if you liked the video, please do us a favor and hit that thumbs up. Show your support, and it lets me know that you want to see more like this. So thanks a lot everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.